We'll have to wait and see how it happens here, though, as we are jumping into pick ban for game number 1. Gen G going to start on the blue side.
Zoe now banned away from Grace. And so if you're Janair, you probably want to target the Lucian Ezreal as the standard 2. And there it is.
Thank you.
Got that for you.
Very happy with the Ezreal ban.
Vladimir now being banned away as well. And remember, Janair Green Wings is red side, so champions like Vladimir and Lissandra do hold a little bit more strength over there unless you end up getting a hold of like a mid lane champion that can just neutralize the Lissandra. Lucian now banned away by Janair, and this could just mean that Cassiopeia could be banned away by Janair or an Urgot.
Yeah.
Instead, it's actually going to be Gragas, which is targeted specifically at life. This does mean that Urgot is open, and Galio is actually picked first. And the interesting thing about this for me is that normally you pick the Galio with the Kalista. That is the premier bot duo composition right now, and in which case, you could just take the Kalista first and then force them to take Thresh or take Galio themselves, in which case you get one or the other, and it's not the end of the world by any means. So, surprising to see the Galio picked up right away first. Janair now responding with Alistar. They might just go Alistar Kalista to prevent Gen G from getting that combo.
There's also Yasuo to consider down in the bottom side, but doesn't look like Root wants to play that today, as Kai'Sa is going to be picked up. Still could be picked for the mid lane.
Gen G now, looks like Peanut is saying something. I guess at this point you just end up going ADC jungle. You don't have to reveal too much before the second ban phase. Continue to pinch maybe the mid lane champion pool. There's the Kalista. Like what we were just talking about. Big
I saw you shaking
here.
your head when the Kai'Sa got locked in.
And there's the Urgot. So Gen G already off to a massive start here as Janair Green Wings looking to lock in the Aatrox on the other side. And as we head into the second ban phase here, if that Aatrox is locked in, Gen G are coming out swinging with a really massive Phase 1 win of the draft stage. And here we go now as they're going to have to elect something to ban away. Now, Gen G does have some magic damage on that side of the comp with Galio, but you need to hit heavy magic damage champions away now. So you're looking at champions like Syndra, like Victor. Blanc and Zoe are already banned away.
Or how about Zac? Take that Zac off the board already.
Gen G now could ban away the Lissandra unless they don't give Janair Green Wings credit for picking it before their jungler. Again, Janair does have initial priority there. Very interesting, the Yasuo is being banned away.
Really giving credit for Grace to pick that up in the mid lane, given that it will be Kai'Sa Alistar bottom side.
Nocturne now banned away as well. Nocturne Galio composition. And the final ban will be Rise. So I feel like at this point, unless Roach is ready to play Orianna, Lissandra doesn't really have any answers that are remaining outside of Syndra. Roach's match history, at least on OPGG, we don't know how long he's been made aware that, hey, you're playing mid. Would be very surprising to not just see him lock in. And if Xin Zhao gets locked in from Alrong here, Gen G should actually just snap back with Lissandra, because then you basically propose them the same question and say, hey, you have an Aatrox, an Alistar, and a Xin Zhao. I guess all of those champions want to dive into us. Well, let me just freeze everyone really quick and then get away. Instead, Sylas does have a lot of good ultimate targets inside of the Aatrox and the Alistar and the Xin Zhao.
And it's also a pick that Roach was playing a lot on the ladder. So it definitely fits in to what could be possible. Could also swap it around with Cuvée, but we'll have to wait and see which lane that wants to go into. Roach could also just go on to something safe like an Urgot, and then Olaf picked up to go up against Xin Zhao.
What? Lulu? They're going to put all their eggs in the root basket.
That's a Grace pick for you.
Yep. And this is very surprising. They're going to take the Lulu, I imagine, against the Sylas. And so all the eggs are inside of the Kai'Sa basket here. And that's a very, very risky thing to try to do. It is very difficult to protect the Kai'Sa against the Gen G team composition. And the other problem is that the Kalista, unless she ends up getting polymorphed, is almost near impossible to reliably be locked down in later stages of the game. It's a very scary team comp for Gen G. I do have to say that moving outside of the pick ban, I know what Jin Air's trying to do with the Protect the Kai'Sa pseudo Juggermaw type thing, but I really do think that Gen G has the edge.
Certainly does feel that way, but I mean, it's comfort once again for Grace. This guy likes to get onto that pick and essentially just shut down the mid lane, say, okay, I'm not really going to interact too much with you. Let's just shield my AD carry and see if I can cruise on to a victory. And as we saw earlier on today, it's not always up to the draft. Even teams that seem to get behind on the draft can come back and win some games.
So here we are, Galio, Kalista, Sylas, Olaf, and right on the tail end there is Urgod. And this team composition, it definitely gets extremely explosive at one item for all of these champions. Obviously, they will have some scaling inside of their team comp. If they can roll Mountain Drakes, it'll be very powerful for them. They do have a lot of gank set up for the Olaf once he has the Predator boots going. On the flip side, though, Aatrox, Xin Zhao, Lulu, Kai'Sa, and Alistar, this entire team composition is reliant on getting out of lane phase, getting to 2, 3 items, and then having the Kai'Sa go off in the later stages.
We'll see if they can pull it off this time. Should be interesting as we hop on to game 1 of Gen G up against Jin Air. Not the boldest or loudest cheer, but you got those hardcore fans still around for Jin Air, hanging in there. And, of course, Gen G, squad that hasn't necessarily always had these particular players, but has a very colored history and has been around the block quite a bunch of times. So got to understand how they keep their fans in here. We'll see if they can turn it around in the second half of this spring. We'll have to wait and see.
Ocean Drake is the first dragon rolled of the game. Not really that beneficial for either team composition. And Root letting them know that, hey, we know that you're here. And this is really surprising because with that kind of a forward aggressive ward, you would have thought that maybe Malrong and Linderong would just actually run down to the blue and then do an invade, because Lulu, because of the proximity of the incoming minion wave and then being naturally on red side, would be able to collapse first. That could have maybe been a very chaotic start, and instead, oh, Peanut gonna go for the Gromp as Malrong,
oh boy,
looks to make his way over immediately, so we're already gonna get some action.
I mean, he's got the blasting plan too, and Peanut, as the Olaf, doesn't have that much health. He is gonna be able to smite to get on up there, but there's no blasting plans here. Will he go for that flash? He is just fighting for now up against Malrong, and actually they do back away as it seemed as if Life was going to get there first, so wasn't willing to continue on that tree.
It looks like Malrong really underestimated the speed in which Peanut could clear both of the camps. And obviously there's quite a few things that can factor into this. Was Malrong's leash that good, and then how good was Peanut's? Because every little auto attack actually matters at that point. And so Peanut finding himself with a really big advantage early on. It's only 2.5 minutes into the game. He's already clearing the most valuable camps. Malrong,
he's angry. He's had a rough split. He's going for a gank. Might have been able to find Peanut, maybe trade some flashes, but instead they want to get on top of this bottom lane. The taunt's going to get both, and Root getting super low. Means that this gank is going to be up to Malrong here. Already the heal going to be used, but the Hail of Blades is in after the charge. Ruler, though, going to be double flashed on, and there it is. First blood goes to the way of Malrong. Nice knock up there onto Life as the cheers of the Jin Air fans finally coming through.
So here's the thing here is Jin Air Green Wings, they get this gank off in bottom lane, but if you look at the CS, it's still relatively even on the AD carries, and Ruler does go down. But on the flip side, the gold that they just got in bottom lane Olaf is getting ahead in camps. You have to factor that in because how committed that game was. Wow, Grace able to live here.
Roach, my friend. Not the best start to the mid lane debut. I believe this is his first time ever playing mid lane. Quote me on that just yet. We have the skank here once again.
And you take a look at it one more time, and they get the cleanse out of the Kai'Sa, and you can see that Malrang able to come in here, waits until Ruler flashes in order to get that third knockup, and then eventually Ruler does end up going down. And through all of this, I do believe that they did end up capturing their cannon. Peanut opted not to go to the golems and then the scuttle crab after that follow-up and looked to try to get a kill onto Grace in mid. Failed. And so that's actually really good for Malrang.
Going to be interesting to see if he can catch up in the CS. Is going to go over to Bertha right now and just farm that one up. As Ruler now with no, none of his summoners available. Could look for another follow-up. She can be a little bit slippery on the Kalista, but you can see what happens down there. Malrang not going to try for one just yet. Big wave down in the bottom side.
Just a little combo attempt by Linderong. Misses one CS right there, not the end of the world. And also interesting, Root picked up the call onto the Kai'Sa. And I think that also just continues to speak volumes towards the late game mindset that they have themselves in.
Yeah, sit back, get the lane ahead, and just believe in the Root carry. I mean, we've been talking about how Stitch is on the roster, but he just never sees play. And everybody's like, what's happening to this guy that, you know, had some success abroad, comes back on a Jin Air, and then it's like, where is he? Why does Root keep playing? Especially throughout 9 series losses. We've seen Stitch, I think, once or twice, and it was to losses just because, you know, Jin Air, that's what they've been doing nowadays. But, you know, when is the time to change? When do they actually give him another shot and see if it works out? And it must be because, you know, Root does have that solo queue, impressive kind of record, and seems to be decent, but so is Stitch. So I don't know. I'd like to see Stitch a little bit more.
When you're Jin Air and you're moving into the second round robin and whatnot, like what you're saying, normally you would expect to see people trying different things out and seeing what they could get away with, or if anything would actually change all that much. But so far, I mean, they've been doing the same thing for several weeks now, and it is truthfully really surprising. So, right now, as the game does progress, the gold score at the top remains relatively even across the board. And with the first Drake being an Ocean, I mean, there's not really all that much reason for either team to commit to some sort of a fight or worry about teleport priority or anything like that. Just in for a very slow and stable game.
I mean, we knew what we were getting ourselves into. No secret, of course, that Jin Air likes to play long games, and so does Gen G. The last time these two teams went head-to-head, it went to Game 3 in a long series.
Oh.
So, no big surprises. Nova wants to put on his best Mata impression from the Caspa Cup. See if he can actually come up to the top lane at level 4. It looks like no, as Cube has a very good read on the situation.
Managed to know that something is off. And so, Jin Air, they try to make a play happen. A little bit of credit to them just now, but in doing so, they do lose an Ocean Drake at 730. And even though I said it's not a very high priority Drake, it's not that valuable. Getting it at 730 can definitely help with lane sustain.
Yeah, for sure, especially when the enemy team is just not even trying to fight you around that objective. You go in and you steal the blue and you notice nobody's around, which is part of the reason why QV's like, hey, they might be going for me up on the top side, and dude's exactly right. But it's also part of the reason why Gen G is essentially just able to pick up a free Drake and have a bit of that sustain you were talking about. Can definitely help out against some of that Lulu poke in the mid lane, stuff like that.
In regards to the Mountain Drake, both team comps obviously want it. Kai'Sa with that Ren. and ability to secure the Baron is quite strong. So that should be one that would create a big fight. And speaking of a fight...
Trying to face check here, but again, it's Kalista. So life going to be totally fine, even though 3 members were waiting for him.
Really close call. And, well, this is now a passive game again. And it's mostly because every single lane, with the exception of top, can't really kill one another without a very big mistake unfolding. And so that's what's creating all this passiveness everywhere. And you can see Malrang, he's really, really trying to force the issue. And in doing so, he's fallen behind about 40 CS to the Olaf.
He's down about 550 gold as well here at 9 minutes. Just checking that out before.
And it's not even just the gold that he's down. You look at Peanut's XP, and he's almost level 8. And,
wow.
Yeah. Rubber band camps, they will help, but certainly going to be very difficult for him to try to salvage this jungle state.
Take a look at Linderong. He's in the top side stealing Krugs as well. It's like, well, at least I think he was going for that big Krug. Not 100% sure. Might have just been waiting, but it would be funny if he's also taking camps away from Malrang.
Lots of pings going down around the map. And not all that much action, but with Dragon coming up in 2.5 minutes, we can hope that a team fight might end up unfolding. Neither top laner currently has teleport right now, although Urgot, with that ghost and the ignite, might definitely look to make something happen.
He's looking for a fight, maybe some action.
Speaking about fights in action, Captain Marvel comes out in about 2 weeks.
Don't even start with the superhero movies.
what does that mean? What does that mean?
They're all exactly the same. That's what I mean. Yeah, they have like different plot lines and stuff. Or not plot lines, but like storylines and characters and abilities and stuff. But every single movie plays out the exact same way.
And in what way is that?
The only ones that I kind of liked were like Logan and that one X-Men one. I don't even know the name of it. Days of the Past or something like that.
Days of Future Past?
Yeah, yeah. As speaking of which, we'll see if Malrang can get away from this one. The answer is absolutely no, as Grace nearly getting dove here as using that wild growth on Urgot. That's a scary thing in the mid lane, even when you think about it, for your Silas on your team.
Yeah, it's a very big Urgot. And right now, Jinair, they're getting some plates down and bottom. They already have 2, but Linderong, meanwhile, up in top lane. He's got himself 2 on the Aatrox. And going back to what you were just talking about a second ago, the absolute heathen
back
that
to
you
the
are.
discussion,
yeah. The real important topic. So are you not going to go see Captain Marvel?
No,
what about Avengers?
I don't even know if I've seen any of the Avengers movies.
What?
Maybe one of them? I don't really remember. It was so forgettable. So.
You know what? It wasn't forgettable? Malrang probably remembers this very well. He's just running through his jungle, down 2 levels casually to the Olaf. Ends up finding a gargoyle and a guy with beer cans on his head, so not the...
It's a scary combo.
It is.
You're having a night at college, you're like, oh boy, what did I get myself into? As, yeah, waited a bit on the ult as well. Just didn't even bother to flash. He was so taken off guard that... And now, Peanut, he's like, well, I guess this is my blue, as it's going to be the 3rd time he's taking it. Will they even give it to Roach? No, it's Peanut's blue. Actually, nobody else owns that blue.
Well, Peanut almost level 9 now. He is moving over a ward. And, one of the main things that I do want to point out is Malrang has done this in many, many games where he doesn't seem to respect the fact that lanes can go even. And he doesn't need to constantly be trying to force these plays, which is very solo queue-esque, and it's very difficult to pull off in a competitive environment where map hacks are basically able to be granted just by finding the enemy jungler once and counting his CS, but also the wards that are available. And in doing so, he forgoes farming on the off chance that opponents are going to make mistakes, and that's just not a very proper way to play at this kind of a level. So a lot of games where he falls very, very far behind in XP as well as gold, and it just makes it so difficult to recover from. And all that goes through my head is Camille's and Jinzhao's ganking after level 2 red and solo queue. And if that didn't work, they just didn't know what to do.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I'll take this scuttle crab. Wait, no, it's already gone. Where do I go now? I guess I'll go kill the Gromp, and then you're like miles behind. Yeah, it's been a season of, do I get the first gank and then can I transition, or do I just do absolutely nothing in the game? For Malrong, as Jinner's actually making a play here up at the Rift Herald, partially because Linderong has been just pushing in that Urgot so consistently up in the top lane, so that will go the way of Jin Air. They're not going to forget to pick this one up. Now, will Gen G force a fight is the question. They're going in onto Linderong, and here comes Nova from behind, but not quite able to make anything happen here as Linderong and Malrong both flashing away. Now Malrong is in the death chamber, nowhere for him to go. In goes Life, and Root, essentially all alone, is going to try to flash away. Does have that cleanse, but Wild Growth comes in and saves his life. And actually, Gen G does get pretty low, so they are not going to continue on the chase.
That was a really clutch knockup by Nova, completely turning that on its head.
Oh, yeah.
Looked like a very close encounter with death. It almost really did look like Jin Air might have just lost the game right there, because if multiple members go down, it's going to result in the mid lane turret falling, the loss of more jungle camps. And take another quick look at it again. Grace is doing his damnedest to try to hurt Peanut as much as possible. And then Roach, with that Aatrox ultimate, able to just run straight onto Malrong and Linderong and just throw him right away. He flashes over the wall, but not to the blasting plant. Ends up going down there shortly after. We didn't get the knockup.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Sometimes we like to cut the replay a little bit short, especially if the back room thinks that we are going to have some action nearby. And I suppose because Malrong was going top of the Rift Herald, they thought perhaps we would not want to miss that. But no plates, no Rift Heralds, no go. As, yeah, definitely agree with you, Nova, with the big time play. He tried to come from behind, and that definitely is one of these. Well, I'm going to hold that thought. As Peanut and Roach both coming to the top side, thinking about a dive. You can see Wild Growth on Roach here, so somebody's going to be real big. As in goes that World Ender. Linderong just trying to stay alive right now, but he's going to be dragged away. And they will go for that follow-up dive. Can Linderong get away? He does a nice amount of damage, but it's not enough. 1v3, successful dive happens, but elsewhere on the map, Jin Air just gets 4 people into the mid lane, and they're pushing on into tier 1.
Yeah, and I do think that Jin Air is actually making the better out of this trade. They're pushing on for 2 mid turrets.
This lane's taking off, LS.
And the Rift Herald, I do think, is going to get one more charge at least on mid. Not sure if... Okay, never mind. Silas gets there just in time. Bottom and top tier 1s are taken down. But this does mean that without a real objective, Jin Air, they're able to turtle much more defensively, or closer to their own jungle camps. They don't have to go that far out onto the map. And the only downside, however, is that the top tier 1 and bottom tier 1 on the side of Gen G are still alive, and that's going to prove to be quite a big thorn in Jin Air's side. Although their team composition still hasn't fully come online yet, the one thing that they do have going for them is that Gen G doesn't really have too much to do right now.
Yeah, kind of just hanging out for a minute. Peanut's got to pick up his blue here, so they're going to go on into that. As it continues, I think this is the 4th blue that Peanut may be able to take away. Grace thinking that it's his, but I believe they'd be wrong as Peanut picks it up for the 4th time in a row. So happy Olaf with blue.
I think that blue, I think he thinks that he can marry blue. That's what I think is going on here. He's had a little bit too much to drink. Just keeps taking it. But anyways, regardless of that, look at the XP difference still inside of the jungle is at 2 levels. And that's something that you really don't want to have happen right now, especially when Jinzhao is supposed to be one of your primary peelers for the Kai'Sa.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to need him to be in the front line and not just fall apart like a piece of paper, but he's nearly getting doubled in farm. We're not at a flame horizon in the jungle yet or anything like that, but we're getting close as Malrong thinking about a gank. Has Root nearby alongside Nova, but they will not continue it as a third Drake will go to the side of Gen G. Kind of similar to the first Ocean Drake, where a lean from the side of Jin Air to the top side leaves the freed Ocean Drake to the side of Gen G. So they pick up a second, and they're going to have an Infernal here in 5 minutes.
And right now, looking to make a play up here on top, but life is here.
Yeah.
So you do not want to try to dive that Urgot, get exhausted, and then have a Galio land right on your face. So they're just going to back off. It's only a 2,000 gold lead here for Gen G at the 20-minute mark. And realistically, you would have expected they should have been a little bit more ahead, especially because the jungler difference in this game. So Jin Air, they're not out of the game yet. They do still have the Kai'Sa scaling available. They can try to have the Lulu and Kai'Sa go off around the 3-4 item mark, but Gen G should be in position to capitalize on the Infernal still once that ends up spawning.
Yeah, and it definitely does feel like that will be their ticket to victory. Already in a really good spot right now in this game, but you pick up an Infernal and begin to threaten in that mid lane outer tier 1. Maybe force some kind of fight there, as things have been looking pretty decent for them in the lead right now, and I can't say I can complain too much about Roach's Sylas play so far. He's definitely been in the spotlight as he has replaced Fly for game number 1, and although he did miss a couple of knockups early on, he's still going strong and understands at least how to play the Sylas.
Now at this point, just gonna be a big war of vision control leading up to the Dragon. Coming up here in 3 minutes. Zanya's Hourglass will be the next item of choice for the Sylas. Whereas the Guinsu's Rageblade on the side of Root gonna still be a little whiles away. The level differential across the board, there is a 1 XP gap in the bottom lane. Top lane, however, Linderong is ahead of Cuvée. And mid lane, Roach is now up a level over Grace.
It may seem like something small, but just the extra stats separated over 5 champions can certainly just be that little bit extra to get you ahead in a team fight or in a one-on-one in a lane or something like that. And Linderong certainly has been one of the guys on the side of Jin Air that has been pretty consistently doing well, at least, you know, not going up to the top side and feeding or doing anything like that. So, you know, it's good to have him back on the Aatrox, even though he got dove as 3 members. Not necessarily his own fault all the time on that one. So, trying his best to carry on this nerfed Aatrox that is still in the LCK.
Cuvée just trying to steal away the Krugs. Didn't actually see, did Grace just get that?
Yeah, he did.
Oh.
He missed the cannon, but then he got the Krug.
That's worth the net gain.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
He might have lost the cannon, but Cuvée lost the Krug, which he was committed
Steals it
time
away.
to. Right.
Yeah.
You know what? XP was still a net positive. So, minute and a half now until the Infernal Drake. And interestingly enough, the Grace, he has the Oblivion Orb. I believe he's going to get the Morellonomicon. That is going to prove to be very effective. As you can see, there's no magic resistance on the side of Gen G, which means that
5 tabby.
33 magic pen right now for Lulu. You can see here that Kalista has 35. So you do the math, Lulu's almost true damaging Kalista. And the same can actually be said, I think, for a couple other Gen G members. Yeah, 47 for
Even
Urgot.
Yeah.
I do believe that Sylas is a little bit lower than Urgot. Galio, 40, but he does have that magic shield.
Yeah. Alistair on Jin Air's team.
Yep,
Yeah.
his teammate, so not trying to hit him. Can you imagine how different League would be if there was friendly fire?
I mean,
Ezreal would be the worst champion of the game.
I know. Especially old Ezreal. You wouldn't use your W on your friends anymore.
Karthus would be terrible.
Yeah, that's true. Oh man.
But I mean,
that may be the worst champion in the game.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
it's terrible. It's why he doesn't get picked here.
LCK agrees that Karthus is terrible, right?
We live in a timeline where LCK believes that Olaf is better than Karthus, so I'm still waiting to wake up and look to my right and see Leonardo DiCaprio still asleep in his seat. You know, that's what. That's what I'm waiting for. But you know what Jin Air Greenwings is waiting for is to capture this Infernal Drake.
Ooh, Linderong sniped that one even after missing the second part of the queue. As Jin Air not going to leave this one hanging. I mean, they are considering going in and playing for this one, but you're going up against a Kalista. And here we go. In goes Linderong straight in the back, but it is going to go the way of the Kalista as well. As the knockback goes on to Kyuvey, but they pull back that Galio. Look at this huge spear onto all the side of Gen G. But can they do any more damage? They're just going to dunk them in the back line as down goes the rest of Jin Air. Not really doing much in that fight. Just Linderong trying to charge on through and force that one. But it did not come true, their wish tonight. As 7-1 is the score now in favor of Gen G.
I'm going to have to say that's probably going to be the end of the game. They can just go for the Baron right now. Kyuvey has teleport in case Linderong wants to get a little bit frisky.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, we'll take a look at this. This is the greatest Leroy Jenkins impression I've ever seen. The Aatrox runs straight into the pit, and then just watch Rue on the Kai'Sa. He's getting the movement speed from the Scuttle Crab, but chooses to activate his ultimate, still gets feared beyond death. Kiting doesn't really matter as Gen G was just all over him. And they just couldn't get any value. And it's because their team composition hasn't really, it had not yet spiked. It wasn't fully online yet. And so it was an unfortunate time for them to try to take a all or nothing team fight. They end up losing it. And this does mean that Gen G now, 7,000 gold lead, an Infernal, a Mountain, and a Baron buff that is backed up by 2 Ocean Drakes.
Yeah, it's only good news here for Gen G, though, as the roads in the mid lane seems to be working out, and Kyuvey himself in the top lane is one guy that I was also not very impressed with, but in that last team fight, he actually sniped with the Fear Beyond Death, threw multiple enemies onto that weak Aatrox that was trying to hide behind them, and that was really the big ultimate that gets them ahead. You snipe the Aatrox, get him out of the fight after his Leroy Jenkins into the pit. You kill him, and then you fear 3 members, and it's like, well, what are you going to do? That's part of the reason why Urgot is so good. If you can land a dream ultimate like that, I mean, you're going to have to be really far ahead to even win a fight after that kind of ult.
And for Jin Air Greenwings to try to win a fight after this kind of a deficit is going to require some things that I don't think could occur. Maybe I'll list some for you, Brendan. A blackout.
A blackout, okay, that's,
internet going out.
Yeah, okay, essentially the same thing, but, you know.
Emergency services needed for some of the players on Gen G.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably
Is that all you got?
Yeah,
okay.
that's all I can think of at that point.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, Gen G, they're miles ahead now, as even Urgot is chunking Root here. Even though he does true damage to them, they don't seem to care. They're just too far ahead, and they have the Baron in the double ocean, as you were mentioning. So the sustain is real. 2 inhibitors down at 27.5 minutes as Gen G trying to make this a quick one.
This is not what one might expect either if they're just tuning into a Gen G versus Jin Air. Is how are their inhibitors down at 27 minutes? This isn't supposed to happen. Obviously, it's supposed to be a gentleman's agreement. Those don't fall until at least 40.
We had no real lull state in this game. I mean, there were small ones, but there wasn't the real lull state that generally lasts about 10, 15 minutes. Especially when you got a couple of these teams facing off against each other. As Gen G, you know, getting it done quick.
Yeah, they're going to enable the 7 versus 5 if they can capture this last inhibitor. What I mean by that is 2 super minions now coming from every single lane.
Well, Gen G just going to fight for it as see you later, Alistair. Get the fear onto that Aatrox too, as the rest of Jin Air are just giving up on this one. Everybody's in the fountain. And that's going to do it in just about 28 and a half minutes. Gen G with Roach into the mid lane will find success and will take game number 1 up against Jin Air.
And, well, Roach gets a win here on mid lane Silas. And Peanut looking very happy. Now they're zooming in on him. It's making me think that he's going to get the MVP. Because he did manage to run around the map and farm camps, while Malrong ran around the map and looked at lanes.
Sure, I mean, it was a big jungle difference in this one. I mean,
it was a massive jungle difference.
It was 4 blue buffs in a row.
Right.
Stolen by Peanut, and that's just the beginning, right? That sounds like a big deal. It was only the beginning of the domination in the jungle.
I mean, as a team, though, it's very difficult for me to say who is MVP in this game, because it just actually felt like Gen G was a team this game. It didn't really feel like there was some standout performance. I mean, you can say that, oh, Peanut's getting this level lead and stuff, but at the same time, Malrong's letting it happen, and
not really getting
any
support either.
Right, nothing's really happening in any of the lanes. Everything was very passive, very slow, very stable. And then Gen G, as a unit, come together. They win a team fight. They make plays happen. Life up in top lane to protect the dive attempt at that one point. Everything was just very smooth, and they actually won in relatively quick fashion against Jin Air.
I mean, it's definitely a good sign. I mean, you always have to take into account the team that they are going up against. I'm sure Gen Z fans are going to be ecstatic that, like, hey, something's finally working. But then again, it's not up against one of the stronger teams we have here. But maybe this is just that rock that they can begin to build up upon. I mean, it is only game 1 as well. I don't want to speak too early.
Right.
And, you know, maybe have Fly come back, and then all of a sudden it's like, what happened? But we'll have to wait and see. I was actually trying to take a look at Roach's current games played, Has played quite a lot, actually, in the top lane. He's played a bunch more than Cuvée, but I believe this is going to be his first time getting that win in the mid lane. As, Lulu does a bunch of poking damage, but doesn't end up mattering, as only 2 turrets and 1 kill to Jin Air, and Gen G crush him.
Yeah, and the Lulu's dealing as much damage as she did, primarily because the enemy team had no magic resist, and like you're mentioning, she does a lot of damage in the mid lane while hitting Silas, so all that going for her.
Yeah. Very curious to see who the MVP is going to be, but of course that'll show up on your screens halfway through when they're doing the Korean analyst desk. So, we'll have to see if Jin Air can pull things together and try to end their streak here, as it looks like we're almost ready to jump into that break. But Gen G, looking pretty good with the sub, I have to say.
Yeah.
You think we'll see him again for game 2?
I do think so.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, guys. We'll be back after this commercial break. We'll be right back.